everybody, welcome to the workstation. We did this a couple years ago at the LA Forum and a similar thing. I thought it was really nice having everybody up close and I could sort of demonstrate what goes into the performance and what all the little toys are made out of, how the drum kit's evolved even since that time. Basic changes I made, this time we went into start the Rolling Bones record. I decided that maybe I was taking it a bit safe and I wanted to change a few things around, so as Larry was setting stuff up, I said, hey, wait a minute, let's move some stuff around. So I put all the tones in different places and moved my floor tom over onto the left side. And so then if I did go to any of my state fusional patterns, at least they would sound different. And also it gave me a lot of different rhythmic variations of having a low note under the left hand and different pitches available in different physical areas. So as we go through the songs, what I've done, I just took a live tape from the other night in Reno, and I'm going to pump it through the monitors and play along with it and kind of explain what each song is made of, both musically and technologically, and kind of what I'm having to deal with out here in terms of challenge. And one of the first ones is a song called Time Stands Still from a few years ago. And this one live I'm having to work to a click track because there's a female vocalist on it, Amy Mann. And obviously she's not free to travel with us all the time, so we had her up on the screen, and in order to keep the song in sync so that when she comes up there singing, she's actually singing to the audience as well. I'm playing with the click track through that. And then apart from the acoustic stuff, I've got a kind of an array of samples, which is this little SID here is a handy little trigger that we invented and had made. It's like a miniature Simmons pad. It gives me access to an electronic trigger right in the middle of things instead of all the electronic pads are mostly difficult to get to, and sometimes if you're having to stretch too far, it can put you off your tempo and smoothness and all that. So for some things to keep them like this combination, I have a little block down there, and then a sheet of metal up there, and different parts of the middle, castanets over there, and a weirded out snare. And then we're also, just for, of course, being a three-piece, we use a lot of keyboards and a lot of stuff on our records that's difficult to reproduce. The other guys are so busy with foot pedals and choreographing all their moves, because one of our points about sampling is that nothing can come from off stage. Anything that gets triggered is triggered by us in real time, so that we're the ones that have to get it in time, and I have to set up the tempo. Sometimes 2 minutes into a song, a sequencer will come in, the sequencer in perfect tempo, so I'm responsible really to keep the song together right up till that level, so when that sequencer comes in, the song suddenly doesn't go whang or slow right down. So that's an extra special challenge in the show too, is that when I'm not playing to a click, there still are those constraints that at a certain point in the song, suddenly this bit of perfect tempo is going to come in, and I'd better be ready for it, you know. And again, from the other guys too, whoever triggers that thing has to trigger it at exactly the right time so that it doesn't upset the tempo and the flow of the song. So there's one part in this song where I'm wired into Getty's keyboard setup, and this little DAWs pad here, that's its function. It's the voice of the keyboards. So in places where I can help them out and I can see they're having trouble juggling it all, I say, give me that part, I can play that. And in this part we have a part, we call it Event City, and basically it's all, it's a series of sound effects that were put together over the course of a day in a studio. It's not even playable live, and you'll hear it as it goes through the song. That it's another thing that I have to play it exactly in the right time, stay in time with it through a 7/4 section, and then come out of it on time, still in time with the click track of the film and all that. So there's a whole lot of stuff going on that's only driving my mind crazy, and hopefully just keeping the song together. So we'll get going with that one.
Get my breath.
of variables you have to deal with in a song that's, say most of our songs are free from click or anything. We have two where other people's voices are involved, so we stay in sync with it. But through all that, other people are triggering sequencers through there, and the one I mentioned from the keyboards. If I don't nail that on time through that 7 section, then, you know, the train wreck happens. We had a couple times on this tour when it has to happen to everybody, and I know it does. Even Buddy Rich, I know it happened to. That the whole band just, the guys out on the soundboard will be making this. Here comes the train. So there are infinite opportunities. It's one of the things that does make the show such a case of stress. And before it comes up, it's like what's in your mind is all the things that can go wrong, and all the things too that are outside of your control, because there's so much of it is technology, and even mechanical things. If a snare head breaks at the wrong time, it can be, you know, an absolute nightmare. Next one I was going to go on to is one called Bravado from the new album. And it's interesting, I think, because it's basically founded upon a 4-on-the-floor bass drum rhythm, which is one thing, like, I think a lot of drummers I used to be leery of. You know, I used to think, I'm not going to sit there and play a 4-on-the-floor bass drum beat for all day. And especially in the 70s when it was sort of symptomatic of disco. It was like, it was poison even by association. But over the years I have found interesting ways to apply it, and the thing that it does do beautifully is that it roots a rhythm and allows your hands to go all kinds of different places. And this song, I spent a lot of time refining down a drum part that I think is almost architectural. It supports the song in different ways. Dynamics come in and out of it. It gave me a great opportunity to use having a floor tom on my left, as you'll see, both rhythmically and as a jumping off point for fills. And it's another one too in which sequencers come in and out in perfect time. So it's another one where I have to nail the tempo from the beginning, and parts of the sequencers go away for minutes at a time, and then suddenly they're back in. So I have to keep the song rooted through the whole space of it. And then at the end of it, there's an entire improvised section that we added to the recorded version in the rehearsal room. And we decided, after all these years, we've learned how to reproduce our records live, which for a long time was a goal, and we've taken criticism for it, but I think it was a noble thing to try to reproduce what is actually a superhuman performance in the studio. You can make it perfect, you can correct all your mistakes. If there's a little bit you don't like, you can go out and fix that little bit. You know, it is truly and literally superhuman. So we pursued for probably 16 years just that goal of trying to be as good live as we were on record. And we felt that we'd more or less achieved that to our satisfaction. So this tour, we immediately started changing our goals. And even the new songs, right from day one of rehearsals, we started changing arrangements. You're gonna have to drown this guy out. We started changing arrangements, adding improvised bits and so on. And this song's an example of that, where the whole end part evolved out of rehearsal room rehearsals, or rehearsal room jams, basically. But then we found out when we came into a venue like this, suddenly the intimacy, both personally and musically among us, was kind of lost. And in arena particularly, it was awfully difficult for us to feel truly free in an improvisational sense. So we found that all these patterns and ideas that we developed in the rehearsal room served us well as a foundation, but the chances I would take in the rehearsal room obviously are much greater than the ones I would take in front of an audience. And I think that's a safe enough bet. In fact, I had an interesting conversation about that with Mickey Hart. I went to my first Grateful Dead show in Atlanta early in this tour, and he was telling me, he said the last night they'd had an absolutely great show, and that night's one he felt was pretty boring, because their show is so much predicated on improvisation, as is so much jazz, that as human nature and human behavior is, it has to range from the ridiculous to the sublime. Some nights it's going to be brilliant, like any of us, and other nights it's going to be really lousy, like any of us. So that's also the weakness of improvisation. So it's a reason why we like to keep our show well balanced in favor of organization, so it will always be at least good. And if we're having an extra special night, there is room, and there are jumping off points where each of us and collectively we can all take it further if it's happening. But I thought it was interesting for Mickey to admit that, you know, some nights they had a brilliant night, and other nights he felt, you know, and admitted that it was pretty lame. Go on with Bravado. No electronics in this too, is a big relief. just an example of what can be done with balanced dynamics, and I think beginning with a song where the other two presented me the song basically with a 4-on-the-floor drum machine. And like I said, I've never found that totally satisfying, but it does represent a good jumping off point. And I found things like the skip drum beat in the bass drum beat in the second verse, and ways to bring in the toms in and out for dynamic's sake, and also to give me more rhythmic variation. And also, from a drummer's point of view, if you're going to play the song possibly for years and years, I think that the drum part becomes important to me because it has to be challenging enough and enjoyable enough to play every night on, you know, on an ongoing basis. So it possibly is a different set of values for a studio musician where the only question is serving the song. And I think that's valid too within its context. But if you're a member of a band that's a touring band and this is your drum part and essentially your song that you're going to have to reproduce, then I think your agenda becomes that plus. You know, you want to serve the song certainly. And I think in this case I was very careful to stay out of the way of vocals or lead parts or anything else where I might, you know, sort of tread on someone else's toes, but at the same time there was no reason not to make it as interesting as possible for me, as dynamic as possible, just as a pure drum part, and in the end come up with something that is a pleasure to play every night. What do we got next, Big Money? All the Bones, okay. Here's another one that's live, is played also to the click for the same reason. We have another voice comes up on the screen up there, so I have to stay in sync with the film throughout. I dug myself some interesting holes in the drum part of this. Again, when the guys were working on the musical part, they asked me for some rhythmic input. So I programmed the drum machine, because normally in our working relationship, I'm off working on lyrics and they're working on music, so I can't be there, fortunately in a way, because for a drummer I think it's kind of soul destroying to have to sit there and do the hack work while the other guys are working on a musical part. You're the drum machine essentially, so I'm kind of grateful to drum machines for taking that away. But in this case, I had programmed a drum part for them, and then they wrote the song around this part, which appears in the bridge, and I programmed it as a drum machine part, not thinking about having to play it. So when it came to me playing the song physically, of course I treated that part a little different. And they said, well, that doesn't sound like the part you put. Well, I can't play that part. You know, it's a drum machine part. A machine can play it. So those kind of challenges, I think for a lot of us, and certainly for me, all I need is a challenge like that. I will play it. So I went off to the rehearsal room and learned how to play it, and it appears in the bridge sections of this song. It's got a very rapid, syncopated sort of bass drum part that was easy for the machine, but considerably more difficult for me. It's stuff like that you hear through the song. So again, it was just one of those places where your imagination can sometimes give your body a challenge, or a machine can certainly return that challenge to you. This was an example of that. Electronically in this, through the sections, it's kind of a pseudo-rap part. We call it the chat. And I use electronic drums just for the kind of veracity, I guess, of it. And it's your typical mechanical drums, only of course I'm playing them physically, and they appear in the middle of a very organic rock song. And this is another case where I'm tapped into the keyboards, filling in a part that was difficult for the other two guys to get to. So I have to get, again, that was another thing I had to choreograph in the middle of all my playing to get over to that. And then I have another keyboard part here, which again was choreographed in, and I thought, okay, I can get to that, guys. You know, you got enough to do. I'll take over that. So I took on the keyboard part there. I think, yeah, that's all the electronic stuff. So here it is, Roll the Bones.
When I step my place, loses
trust of technology. Like I say, by the time those two are gone, it's like, yes, okay, from now on I run the show, and not at the mercy of you know, a mechanical feed from elsewhere. The next one is again an older song. It's called The Big Money, but it makes some interesting use of pads available all around me, and one with a couple little sequencers coming in, but for the most part, again, I'm steering the show.